All right, I have 4:15. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call. Sam Martin?
Here.
Rick Morgan's here. Bob Freeman? Here. As we normally do, we're going to have a short public input before we go into the red folders. Anybody here to speak during public input? Ma'am?
Did they ever get the evaluation done about that 1 acre lot at the beach down for Ossipee?
First of all, tell me who you are and where you're from and what's your question?
Judy Casey from Haverhill, Mass, but also Camp Secocas. Did they ever get an evaluation for that acre of land that they're gonna use as a public beach?
What do you mean evaluate? I don't understand your question. What evaluation?
I was under the assumption you're gonna evaluate the acre of land that was donated for the beaches.
There was never any land donated. There was an offer of a donation,
Yeah.
but there is no evaluation
You're not
pending.
gonna try it or anything, see if it'll work?
It's very clear that it won't work, so there's no real evaluation to be made. Anybody have anything else? Okay, no, we're going to start into the red folder. First thing we have is the minutes of the Selectmen's work session, which occurred on Monday, October 2nd. I make a motion we accept it as printed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting, which occurred on Monday, October 2nd. I make a motion we accept them as printed.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We have the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting, which occurred on Wednesday, October 4th, and I was absent. So one of you will have to move it and second it.
Make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sign that. And we have the minutes of the Selectmen's meeting, which occurred on Wednesday, October 11th. I make a motion we accept it as printed.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I
Sam was
abstained, I
absent.
wasn't here.
We have the check voucher totals, which were approved last week, but since we had our last public meeting, so I'll announce them. Payroll with benefits for week ending 10/7 was $135,456.93. Accounts payable for week ending 9/30 was $13,200.57, for a total dispersed of $148,657.50. Additionally, there were water and sewer accounts payable for week ending 9/30 in the amount of $9,810.72. We have the batch totals for accounts payable for week ending 10/14. Payroll was $37,567.91. Accounts payable for week ending 10/7 was $76,405.32. We dispersed to the precincts $110,117.83 and made a school payment in the amount of $495,554 for a total dispersed this week of $719,645.06. Additionally, there were water and sewer accounts payable in the amount of $7,393.06. I make a motion we sign them.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. These are the batch totals. As I've stated before, but for those who haven't been here before, each bill that comes in starts off with the department head, who approves it and ensures that we receive the services that we're being billed for. It then goes through our payroll department and accounts payable, and then comes to us before we get to here. Each one of the bills have been reviewed and initialed individually. We have a raffle permit application for the Friends of Ossipee Public Library for a drawing, date and time of drawing of December 18th at 6 o'clock. I make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This memo from Brad Harriman, who received the 2 quotes from the vendors that quote for the New Hampshire Department of Transportation. Both companies offer the same quotes to municipalities in their respective districts. This year, both companies, Granite State Minerals and Morton Salt, this is for winter salt, by the way, quoted the same price of $58.85 a ton delivered to our salt shed. My recommendation is to award the 2017-2018 salt contract to Granite State Minerals. We have been using them for the last 12+ years. They've been excellent to deal with, so I see no reason to make a change. Given that it's state bid pricing and it's the same price, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have the propane fuel bid specs, rather. We'll be advertising, the town of Ossipee is soliciting bids for delivery of propane for the following buildings. And it has the amount, the buildings and the approximate amounts, as well as the fuel bid specs for both diesel fuel, gasoline, and number 2 heating oil. Have you both had a chance to read these?
I haven't looked at them yet,
I have, I put them online.
Yep. They're the standard specs that we did last year. Simply, we're looking for the bid specs, and each we've given out exactly approximately what we use for gallonage for each one. If you're all set, I'll make a motion that we proceed with putting those both fuel and propane bid specs out.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You want to go ahead and make sure and get it?
They are on the website.
They're on the website, but we
Yes.
get them advertised. We have a draft of a request for proposal for brush clearing, at the window on the Ossipee site. Seeking proposals for the selective removal of brush at the window on Ossipee Mountain site located on Route 16. Interested and qualified companies and individuals are invited to submit proposals to the Selectmen's office by 12 p.m. on Tuesday, October 31st. The scope of the work documents is available at Town Hall. It's here also.
That is for draft purposes, it hasn't been advertised yet. I don't know if you want those bids to be circulated to the Conservation Commission or to you, or
Well, we're gonna pay.
if we even want to put it out to bid at this time of the year.
I don't think it's a bad idea to put it out at this time of year. I do think that we ought to at least allow the Conservation Commission to have some input on it. So I'll make a motion that we have the town administrator relay this to the Conservation Commission for their feedback, but I think it's worth getting out and doing
I
this
do
fall.
too.
Yeah. They did, they're the ones that proposed that.
Yeah,
So I
so
would-
they're the ones that proposed this?
Yes.
Oh,
That
so,
was- That was drafted by Tim Arterbach from the Conservation Commission.
Why is it all in caps?
that's the way it is. I'll make a motion then, rescind my previous, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and advertise request for
I'll
proposals.
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a memo to Helen White from Bob Gillette, it's from the Lake Region Planning Commission's meeting. She attended the fall meeting of LRPC in Tilton on Monday, the 25th of September. 2 subjects of possible interest to us and the Select Board. The timeline for the electricity aggregation process, it's one we've already been updated on. It's a cooperative purchasing of electricity. The dues for fiscal year 2018, dues for the town of Ossipee for the coming year will be $4,375, an increase of $94 over last year. It's here in the folder if anybody'd like to look at it.
Are we going to maintain that under the Selectmen's budget for this
Yes.
year, just so I
Yes,
can prepare?
yes. The question was whether or not that was gonna be under the select budget or under the planning board budget. In previous years, the town's dues for the Lake Region Planning Commission were put in the planning board budget. I don't know why originally, not that it ever made a lot of sense. This past year, the planning board at one point voted not to pay those dues because there's much more involved than just the planning board. The select board decided to pay the dues out of its budget. There are several areas in particular on highway safety where the select board depends on what we get from Lakes Region Planning Commission, and in particular, the safety surveys at the intersections, et cetera, to help us make decisions. Also, Brad Harriman, our Public Works Director, is you president of that now, or vice president? Vice president of the safety, it's a technical advisory committee for Lakes Region Planning, and I think it's important because of some major things that we've got going on, such as the twin bridges in West Ossipee, as well as the work that we've been advocating for so long at 28-171 rather, that we continue to be a member, and we're gonna do that under our budget, not the planning board. So, we have a copy of a letter here regarding an issue that the town of Freedom had with our ambulance provider, and because we are a multi-town agreement, they've attached both their concerns as well as Care Plus, their response, and it seems as though the issue has been resolved. We have a copy of the Highway Department work log, which is here in the folder if anybody would like to look at it. There's also a letter which has been forwarded to the police chief from some residents at White Pond asking for additional police patrol. And that has been conveyed to the police department for action. We have an application for restoration of involuntary merged lots. And this has to do with Shikora Forest Lands. This note, is this from you,
It
Ellen?
is.
There's a note that we need proof from them.
What they're saying is that at some point the town involuntarily merged a few lots that are shown on the attached documents. They provided a survey from 2016 that shows the way the lots are supposed to be depicted, but as far as I can go back, I found some tax maps from the early 90s that show the lots as we have them currently. So there's no real evidence, and I don't know if it happened prior to the subdivision regulations or if they're trying to do a subdivision after the fact without going through the subdivision process. So we need more information. It doesn't seem to be a complete packet.
Okay, so
Sure.
what is being done with it now?
Well, it goes to you because you ultimately are the ones to decide whether or not to unmerge them without doing the subdivision. Where does it say that?
All right, but I guess my question is, and how is it gonna get resolved? Who, if they're gonna provide us, are they providing, or are we researching to provide?
I have to go through and look at, that just came in today. I
Okay.
don't think they've provided enough information to,
Right, so we can table it till the next meeting and see if more
Correct.
information is available. Very good. We have a contract for use of facilities. This is one that which we had previously denied. And this is the Mountain View Condo Association, they're centered in North Conway. Evidently, in the past, they have used the Freight House here for their board meeting. We notified them of the denial because they're not an Ossipee, they're not Ossipee residents. So then they came back and requested permission to rent the building. Ellen contacted me, I told her we'd bring it back to the meeting, but my gut tells me that's not something we want to do.
No. And once we start.
I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but them being from Conway, I can't believe that there are not adequate meeting facilities between
They have
somewhere
a
in,
community center and a Gibson Center up there.
somewhere in Conway that they could.
What you just tabled was back to the 80s. They merged a lot, including most of Roland Park. I know because my father was not very happy this got merged. That's how I remember.
We're looking, we'll try to get some more information and then decide. So does anybody have any interest whatsoever in renting?
No.
All right, if you can just let them know that we're not interested. This is a notice from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, and it's a notice and change of their staffing in the area. It's here in the folder if anybody would like to look at it. Excuse me. We have 3 copies of wetland permits, and at this point, all it does is they have to carbon copy the Board of Selectmen. I guess I can tell you where they are at least.
All through the sun.
This is for 16 Old Broad Bay Road in Center Ossipee, first one. The second one is for 68 Levitt Road in Ossipee. Third is for 100 Levitt Road in Ossipee. Those are here if anybody would like to look at them. They're available. They are a public document. We still have in the folder, for those who don't remember, our highway department repaired our road, which ends at the White Pond Public Boat Launch. In the course of that, somebody evidently made a complaint, and DES notified us that we had to file an after-the-fact wetlands standard dredge and fill permit. The boat ramp is owned and is the responsibility of the state of New Hampshire, the Fish and Game Department. Brad, you can fill in the blanks if you'd like to, but I'll try to paraphrase that there was an actual on-site meeting between Brad and the Fish and Game Department who said that they had no money nor time to maintain it. Is that correct?
That's right.
We did not, what did we disturb down there?
All we did was we went in and repaired the swale as you're looking at the pond on the right-hand side. The water comes around off the private part of White Pond Road, and it had cut a channel down in, it got out of its channel and was cutting into the boat ramp. So we redid that channel there, lined it with erosion stone, and then just graded the ramp there so vehicles could back down into the
That
pond.
is adjacent to the town road, am I correct?
Comes right off the town road, that's right.
So the drainage that you were doing was the water that was coming off the private portion of the road, had you not addressed it, would it have damaged the town portion of the road?
The shoulder maybe a little bit, but it turned right off there and quickly went onto the fishing game property.
Okay. My position was then, and it still remains, that we don't owe the state of New Hampshire anything for permission to do what was done down there. I do think, though, that we need to do a formal response to them, other than just simply saying we're not gonna do it. It'd be my position that we should have the town administrator write a letter back to DES, explaining that the maintenance that we did is in conjunction with our road maintenance, which we are allowed to do. The road at that point abuts our right of way, does it not abut the pond? I mean, it goes virtually to the water.
Well, no, actually, it abuts the property the fishing game has, their property is the one that goes to the water.
Yeah. But how far is it between our right of way, right there near the boat ramp, how far is it from our right of way to the high water mark of White Pond?
No more than 20 feet.
Adjacent to, and that we feel that there's no requirement, that we've not done anything to disturb anything that would have caused any damage. You might also add that if they have a problem with what was done, that they might contact the Hampshire Fish and Game Department to have them fulfill their responsibilities for maintaining the boat ramp, because it is not truly our problem. Anything you want to add to it?
No.
We have a copy of the consent calendar here from the Executive Council, which is here in the folder if anybody would like to look at it. We have a copy of a small recycling check we received from Scrap Metal in the amount of $310.12. We have the Watershed News, which is a publication of Green Mountain Conservation, which is here in the folder if anybody would like to look at it. We can do it under either new business or old business. Many will know that we had a hearing on Friday in the Carroll County Superior Court to seek permission for a special town meeting. And that permission was granted this morning, and we have a notice of decision which allows the town to proceed with a special town meeting on or before December 31st. We'll be announcing a date shortly. We have the water and sewer rules and regulations, which have been under edit and review. They've been all done, and I make a motion that we sign.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You still have to do table of contents, right?
We have a payroll reimbursement request. This is from the Water and Sewer Department, in the amount of $3,311.11. I make a motion we sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the red folder. All right, old business. Brad, anything new on 28-171?
No. I will reach out to them this next week or so to get, see where they're at with that for you, to give you an update.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the town beach. Obviously, you heard that we just, we did in fact get a decision from the Superior Court allowing us permission to have a special meeting. I make a motion that we call that meeting for November 28th. Be at the Ossipee Town Hall, and that will trigger the notification processes and the meeting schedule.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
While we're on the subject of the town beach, there's a lot that's been said, quite a bit that's been printed. We have tried to stay back on that a little bit, not to put the cart before the horse. But now that we do have permission to hold the meeting, which was the first hurdle that we had to overcome, there's a whole lot of statutory requirements on posting times and notices and locations that we had to be very careful, and they in fact were approved and certified by the court. Now that we have that permission, and we can go full ahead with our proposals. There is only one required public hearing, and that is actually by the Budget Committee. However, we will be hosting, the Board of Selectmen will be hosting a public information night. It's not a required hearing, but again, to answer questions that may be out there, as well as to present some conceptual drawings about what it is that we envision. From the get-go, and a lot has been made, and it's caused a little bit of confusion, because some of the words that I have said have not been the words of the board. They've been my ideas, and there's always room for a lot more than just mine. But from the get-go, there was a belief, or at least a thought, that, and I still believe, that Camp Secaucus, in part, could generate a certain amount of revenue which would offset the cost of the beach. I didn't say that meaning that that was the only way that we could afford a beach. I never believed that that was central to whether or not the town of Ossipee could afford Camp Secaucus, because it clearly is not. What we have received from feedback consistently from local people is that they want the beach, they don't want a campground. They don't want to be in business. There are some people who have a basic philosophical belief that the town shouldn't be landlord, shouldn't be in business, and I understand that. Which is one of the reasons, going back to the beginning, that we pushed for and received a very, very clean purchase and sales agreement. I believe there is consensus, and we need to decide it tonight, but the proposal at this point that the town of Ossipee is going to put forward, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we are going to proceed with the purchase of Camp Secaucus property and to eliminate the campground in its entirety. That we will be looking, we never wanted to be in the campground business. That wasn't our desire. We want a beach. When we believed that it was possible, I thought it was an intriguing thought to maybe let them help pay for it. That was never critical. It was never deciding in whether, that was never a deciding factor in whether or not we proceeded. And it has become more and more clear that the campground business isn't what we want to be in. I will tell you right up front that part of my decision-making has been on the conduct for some of the people at Camp Secaucus. I thought it was telling to me that the only two individuals that went to Carroll County Superior Court on Friday to try to stop Ossipee people from having a vote were residents of Nashua and part-time residents of Camp Secocas. I thought it was pathetic. Thankfully, they did not prevail, their arguments were not persuasive, and the town has the permission to go forward. And we'll take it from there. Do you want to add anything to it?
I agree 100%.
The signs that have popped up everywhere, the, do the math, please do the math. We've done the math's been in the newspaper. It's not gonna cost this town much of anything. If it does, and that's the worst case scenario, would be pennies on the dollar. And I will read from Harry Marrow's letter of last week. If you have a $50,000 property, your annual increase would be $6.50. If you have a $100,000 property, your annual increase would be $13. If you have a $200,000 property, your annual increase would be $26. And if you have a $300,000 property, your annual increase would be $45. What troubles me most about the signs is the cowardness of the people behind the signs. If you're going to put up a sign for something that you believe in, then put your name on it. Don't hide behind words that don't mean anything. We have a lot of people in this town that have put property on the lake, people that have purchased, but many people have owned the property through their families through many years. That's wonderful, but don't tell the people of this town that you don't have any right to that beach. If this town can afford it, I think every citizen in this town has a right to that lake. And for people to come from away that pay $34 or $50 a year in taxes, try to tell us that we cannot have a beach on that town because you come here part-time a year. I realize you've been coming here for years, but that's no reason. That is so un-American not to share. So I'm saying to the people of Ossipee, get on your red, white, and blue and come and vote.
The do your math, listen, I've said from the get-go, please, 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 come to the meetings, hear the facts. I'm not gonna advertise their website for them, but in one of the additional things that's on the sign is a website citation where you go on, and they actually say on their website that the town of Ossipee was unable to afford the porta potties to open Duncan Lake Beach this summer. I swear to God, it's on the website. I don't mean to sound brazen, but the town of Ossipee has a $5.2 million operating budget, and I am quite sure we are well able to afford porta potties. It's just, I don't like the disinformation. Listen to the facts. Duncan Lake Beach was never closed this summer. Duncan Lake is the only other swimming beach that we have. When they talk about this multitude of beaches, I'd like to know where they think they can go and swim on Ossipee Lake, because there is not currently a place for the people of Ossipee to do so. So, learn the facts, listen to them. The numbers that Harry put in the paper are accurate, and it's simple mathematics. It's taking what the bond payment is and dividing it into the town's evaluation that's used to set the tax rate. My only caveat is, actually Harry's numbers are a little worse than what they will actually be, because we've already been notified that the town increased in value $7 million between 2016 and 2017, which spreads it out even further. So the numbers that he's producing are based, correct me if I'm wrong, Harry, on the 2016 revenues. So it'll be even less than that. The other thing that I want to say is those assume worst case scenario. Don't judge us by what we say, judge us by what we have done. Over the last 4 years, the town portion of your tax bill has gone down every year. We are waiting on the 2017 rate, which we believe is going to be 15 cents below 2016's rate. And I think that's pretty accurate. It may be as high as 18 cents. I feel comfortable saying 15. But in the previous 3 years to that, we've lowered the town tax rate 34 cents a thousand. 34 cents. While we continued to accomplish major projects. We built a town shed down here a year and a half ago, $464,000 paid cash for it, and your town portion of your tax rate still went down 4 cents a thousand. So even those figures, I believe, as sure as I'm sitting here, and I think the Budget Committee is gonna conclude, that we can buy this beach, we can maintain this beach, and you will not see any tax increase. I believe that we can continue to hold the line on spending the same way that we have done in the past. If we can build a $200,000 of the highway department come out of that year's operating budget, then we can certainly assume a bond payment without it impacting our taxes. So, again, for those who are against it, I understand why they might be. I understand where their opposition is coming from, but I simply ask townspeople to learn the facts and please, as their sign says, do the math. Because at the end of the day, our math is backed up by facts and figures, while the people with those signs are backed up with scare tactics. Because all they keep talking about is trying to scare people that we're gonna have some big tax increase. That is categorically false. And much of the information on their website is not just false, it's ludicrous.
Propaganda. That's all.
I'd just like to add that the people of Secocas campground can find another campground. The town of Ossipee will not be able to find another beach like this. I don't think we'll have another opportunity to ever own a beach if we don't go for this.
Anyway, there'll be much more. We have contracted with White Mountain Survey to do some conceptual drawings, which we want to get out as soon as possible, because I'm also one of those people that's very visual. I like to see things in a plan form. We will have all of that out. When do we want to do a public hearing information night?
The way that the calendar is right now for November 28th town meeting, the Budget Committee will be holding their public hearing on or around November 1st, 2nd. So I would probably say sometime that last week in October.
30.
Or next week. I don't have enough time for next week to get a hearing
The
notice
30th.
put out. 30th.
Let's do the 30th.
Oh, in the
30th.
selectmen's meeting?
Yeah, let's do October 30th. It'll be following our regular business, and why don't we advertise?
We'll put it on our website too.
Yeah, why
You're
don't we?
gonna have budget review that night as well, so we should probably advertise it for later, like 6 PM.
Okay, that makes sense. Then we can, if there ends up being a short break between them, that's fine too. Just make sure that if everybody understands, it's not a required public hearing, it's a public information night. It will be available, I hope by then we'll have the conceptual drawings. We'll double check on that maybe tomorrow. And
With those additions.
be able to ask people, and that will be at Town Hall. I should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the only reason we're not back at Town Hall tonight is the new floor is down in the gym, but it's being sealed this weekend, so that's why we had to move the meeting to here tonight. But we will be back in the gymnasium for our regular meetings after
Date that you just set that meeting
the
for?
30th
30th of November.
of October. Yep. For 2 weeks. Anything else, anybody want anything on the town beach? Okay. Water and sewer rules and regulations, we just adopted, Bo, they're signed, ready for you. Anything, Brad, on the covered bridge?
No.
Okay. All right. The budgets that we are set to review tonight are short, somewhat sweet, they're mostly ours. The first is the conservation agent. He's the one that helps us with our timber monitoring. It's level funded as it was at last year's rate of $4,306. I make a motion, we present this to the budget
I'll
committee.
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
The second is for the Board of Selectmen, enormous salaries, which encompassed a total of $16,364. That is level funded at last year's rate. At actually the same rate it's been for many years. I make a motion, we pass this on to the
Second it.
budget committee. All in favor?
Aye.
We have the Ossipee Lake Dam Authority. It's our portion of the money that it takes to run the dam on Ossipee Lake, and that is $8,126. I make a motion, we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our legal expenses budget, it's level funded at the same rate as last year at $35,000. I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. We have for patriotic purposes, the same money that we raise every year. It's pretty much just to buy flags that they put on the veterans cemetery, veterans headstones in the spring, for Memorial Day, the amount of, and the holders. It's level funded at $2,000. I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The trustee of trust funds,
Oh, that one's being held.
that's not ready until next week.
No, we're rescheduled that one to October 30th,
Okay.
which is why it's not filled out.
Okay.
Cemetery?
Cemetery trustees.
That one's not done either.
Do you have a budget? They're gonna present it on the fly.
Okay,
Just gonna make a couple copies.
sure.
Calculations fine, I'm still looking at them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Basically, we want to keep the same thing as last year, and all the line items except for, we want to add up to $2,500 for ground penetrating radar, and that's on the old Chickville Cemetery section.
Yep.
Back where we did the tree work, there appears to be numerous unmarked graves.
Okay.
And,
Is that $2,500, is that bringing a company in to do it for you?
right, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what we're hoping.
Yep, okay.
And then we did, Mr. Zimmerman did a real nice job restoring the cemetery, the Abbott Cemetery.
Mhm.
And we'd like to, we got some quotes coming to do a granite sign. I unfortunately didn't have them in time.
May I interrupt for just a
Presentation.
second, please? Mr. Zimmerman called me and asked us to provide a marker that says Abbott Cemetery next to the gate,
Yep.
because of all the work we did. I'll let Rick take back over from there.
So we won't have any proposals in writing until probably next week.
Right. Which, that part is fine, you can always, I mean, you can always add that in when you go to the budget committee, or ultimately, if you needed to, you could do an amendment on the floor,
Okay.
town meeting. So either one, I'm not necessarily opposed to.
Okay.
Get a note here for Chickville granite posts.
Yeah, that was, we got some quotes last year, and that was sort of up in the air, so I was wondering where that stood. I wasn't sure if it was in your court or ours.
Well, it can be in either. My thoughts, though, that would be a significant enough expenditure. We would probably do it with a warrant article,
All right.
independent of your budget, if we were to do it. It's not
That's what
something I would
we're-
expect you to put in there.
Okay.
Hoping you might handle, maybe?
Hmm?
We're hoping you might handle that. We can probably give you a number what we'd need.
Yeah, I think actually, the reason that came up is because I'm pretty sure the association, before they took it over, had a proposal in place to do the granite posts.
I don't remember that. I remember at the meeting it was brought up that we might do it, is how I remember it, but I
Yeah.
could be wrong.
I think it started with them, that they had a proposal, and it was something that they just hadn't done yet.
And the
So
other-
something that we might want to
The
continue.
other thing I wanted to bring up is besides the survey needs to be done sooner or later, is the field's pretty rough before they stumped it years ago, it settled in and stuff. I didn't know, but I'll be maybe rototilled sometime if we start putting people out there, or leveled up with loam or something, because it is pretty hilly if you go out there and walk sometime. I invite you folks to go and have a look at it.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
When you've got survey of the Chickville news section with a question mark.
Yeah, we had provided a quote. We figured the best deal Originally, White Mountain Survey is, they did the original plan.
Yep.
And there was a right-of-way with public service that was abandoned.
Yep.
And once they abandoned that, that gave us another 100 sites.
Okay.
So we need to get a plan done and then some monumentation in there so that we don't end up like Grant Hill with things all over the place.
So do you need to just simply amend the plan that you have currently to
Yeah.
include the new?
That, and then we need some monumentation. The majority of the work's already been done. We got a proposal, I don't remember what the number was, but we had submitted it to the
I
selectmen.
have it still.
And it included that.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I just
I wanna
was
say
trying
it
to
was in the
figure out.
neighborhood of like $5,000 thereabouts.
Some of our markers may not be there from the old stuff, you know, we need to get it organized before it becomes discombobulated. It already looks like, to me, look, citing it, some of it already look a little discombobulated, so we'd like to get it straightened out before it gets out of hand.
Okay. All right.
And then we had a pretty good year all around there. We had no problems, you know, a lot of compliments and everything. And we sort of felt that Chris deserves a $1 an hour raise. That puts him. I think
And
that-
Darryl.
Yeah, and Darryl at, I think that would put Darryl at 16?
I believe Darryl.
I'm not concerned about that only because if, unless something's changed dramatically, you're well under on your wages of what you spent out versus what you raised, so that shouldn't be a consideration.
And then, one last thing, I spoke with Ellen about it today. You know, we have a lot of stumps and stuff, and we'd like to buy a small stump grinder. It's like $1,500, and that'll easily pay for itself in the first couple months of use.
Okay,
There's other money in the existing maintenance line.
Yeah,
Out
that-
of the- out of the current budget.
out of the current budget,
Right,
okay.
yeah, just letting you know
All
what we're
right,
thinking.
no, that's fine. So the only thing correct me if I'm wrong, only thing you're looking to add to this budget is $2,500.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
And then once the quotes come in for the sign later on, then that's fine.
Anything else, Cole?
Computer?
Oh, yeah, but that's coming out of this year's budget.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Okay. So you still need permission to get it,
Proposed
don't you?
budget
If we-
Still need permission to get it, don't you? It's gonna be over $2,500.
If we find more unmarked radar, I think we're going to, I'm pretty sure we are.
5,000 and under.
Do we need to come back to the budget next year? Because we'd like to put flagstones with unknown on them or something, because we have no way of knowing who they are, to mark where they actually are when we find them.
Well, it depends, Roy. The quick answer is, if you have, right now, as of 1st of October, you have half your yearly budget left. You have half of the 36,000. If you're going to expend any funds outside of what the voters approved, then you could come back into the selectmen and say, you know, we've got the money in there, but we'd like to do X, Y, and Z, and I can't imagine a scenario when we wouldn't approve it. But I do caution you to not spend money outside of what it was appropriated for without doing it in the public eye and transparent.
No, we
all
don't
of that
have
stuff.
stuff making mistakes
No,
there.
so the quick answer is, it appears as though your budget is healthy enough that you should be able to absorb some of those costs within the budget. So I'm gonna make a motion, we approve, or put forward a budget of $39,310 for the cemeteries coming year.
Can they do that 25
Yeah.
this year?
I don't know when they're gonna do it.
What about that $2,500?
$39,310.
Include that?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we could do that this
I
year.
don't know if you get that on the total or not, that's what I was worried about.
It's true. When do you propose to be able to do the ground penetrating radar?
Next spring.
We'd like to do it next spring when the snow's gone.
Okay.
No
Unless
chance
we
of
could
doing
use
it this
part of
year?
this budget, we could make some phone calls, see if we get somebody this year,
Yeah.
we're getting late.
We'll get some tree work, we generally do the tree work in the fall when the leaves are gone. But, you know, some of the budget's gonna go towards
We
that.
got two major trees down to Grant Hill need to be addressed. The big pine, you go in, take your left, is hollow, just like the one that broke last winter. And one of the big oaks on the right going in is hollow too.
Anything else? I've got a motion. You
I'll
second
second
it?
it. Yep.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We have the treasurer's budget. Level funded, it's same as last year. Yep. At $11,030.
I took away some supply money and I added some money for town, I moved the treasurer and the deputy treasurer to go.
Okay?
Sorry, I'm not saying, same thing as
$11,030. I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Harry. The general assistance budget, commonly known as the town welfare budget. It's level funded as it was last year at $55,270.
It actually increased by $1
Aye.
because of Medicare and Fed.
Okay. it
Just for
actually- you're right.
transparency.
You're right. It increased by $1 to $55,270. I make a motion, we approve it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Staying.
And the trustee of trust funds we're doing next week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right, second public input, anybody? Yes, Pat.
Ash Fishbone, Ossipee resident. I have a couple things, kind of a scattering of things. It was a few months ago now, we talked about the possibility of putting in signage at the bottom of Folsom and Grant. We discussed the fact that it is state, and that, Brad, you would reach out and possibly discuss something with the state to get signage there to just point people that there are businesses up here. Maybe even removing the village sign. I think there's a business district sign, and maybe come up with something that's a little bit more welcoming. And what I'd like to see done, and I don't know if it's possible or not, but if we could get that in place, if it were possible to have it be a subscription base that would help generate revenue for the Economic Development Council as like a membership or a subscription, or, and then we put it under, essentially have the signs be a template. The storefront or the restaurant would have the ability to put their logo, a few short things, and an arrow, and that's it. You know, have like a very templated format, much like the blue signs, but with a little bit more flavor to them. I didn't know if that was a possibility as well.
I don't know why not. I mean, it sounds like a great idea to me. I guess my only, the key is gonna be because it's state property.
Right.
My gut tells me they wouldn't be as anal about it because while it's state property, it's a secondary state road.
Right.
Because I know they're pretty out on the highway, you have to do the blue signs, and that's what you have for an option.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Brad?
They do have I don't know if I'm going to say a program or not, but they do allow what they call directional signs within their right of way. I know we have in Wolfboro like that, stuff that point, like you said, with an arrow on it. The business have allowed a 4-inch tall by 36-inch sign that'll point them down the side streets to where they're located, even though it's out on the main street.
Okay.
So they do work with towns and stuff like that, so I'd be happy to work with Ash to reach out to them. I haven't done it yet, I fell off my plate this summer, but I'd be happy to work with you on that, get
That'd
the
be great.
contacts in there, see what they say, and kind of go from
I
there.
think it's a great idea. I mean, and
Oh, yeah, I would.
I'd
you know,
like,
it may be something that's a lot more than just the village.
Yeah.
I mean, on
Well,
any,
the expansion of it, I'd like to see if possible, and we kind of joked about it before, where the Main Street signs are on 16B on either end, having a continuation of that, so that way it pulls people off of 16, and then they know where to go once they get onto 16B. I think the goal, I mean, I'd really like to see is, in place of that big sign down there, just utilizing that footprint. And if we were to present that to the state and say, look, we're not taking over anything else, we just want to pull this out, dress this up a little bit, and put something a little better in. And I like the suggestion and comparative to Wolfboro.
I think it's a fine idea. And I think it would look a lot better than what's down there now,
Okay.
as well as serve a purpose. So if you're willing to work with Brad, anything you need from us,
Sure.
I mean, if it gets to the point where you need a letter from us to them, I think we're more than willing.
Well, I guess that would be my question, is what is the next step?
I'm not sure, and I'm actually gonna defer to Brad, maybe, you know, given your also association with Wolfboro, there's gotta be somebody over there that knows what the process was to get those signs approved.
And we went through the welcome to Ossipee signs here too. It'd be the same department we have to deal with, so, you know, I have the contact information for them. I think it's gonna be probably scheduled to have that person come up and actually sit down and talk, and this is what we like to do, and show them and stuff like that. Just, gotta be the groundbreaking part right there to start the process.
Can you do a sign at the corners, like Freedom? They got a sign there and, you know, it just says, you know, such and such deli this way, and then this is this way, and this is this way.
That's what they have in Wolfboro.
Yeah, I know. They got
Is that the
Freedom
same
too.
type of thing you're thinking about?
Yeah, and I mean, I'd like to have options, but yeah, something like that. I think the ability to put someone's business name on there in an arrow does well. Doesn't really matter what it looks like. It gets people up here. I think would be the goal.
I think that's fine. Only briefly on the second part of your thing, which is about raising, you know, doing it as a membership fee and all of that. The only thing I'm gonna tell you up front is just be careful with that, work with Ellen, because we get into really stringent rules under the Municipal Finance Act
Okay.
as to whether, you know, I mean, you are now, quite frankly, you're an arm of the town.
Yep.
So I wanna be very, very careful that we don't step on our own toes. I'm not saying it can't happen, I don't know. But I do know when you mix municipalities and money, we need to just be very, very vigilant and careful. So, I'm sure you're not the first person to have thought of it, there's gotta be somebody else that's doing it. We'll reach out to them and not reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
So, I'm not saying you can't do it, I get very nervous.
Well, Conway's doing it on big billboards.
Yeah, so.
So I said I had a little scattering of things. To bring up the beach and the controversy there, I was reading the PNS. A couple questions I have with my involvement in real estate. I have two things that kind of red flagged me. And one was, in there it just quickly says Gretchen Road will stay Gretchen Road. And then, of course, there was a line in there that the campers will get 3 years along those lines. Yeah, so for that to actually be enforceable, that needs to be deeded. Do you have intentions of deeding that?
Of deeding
The fact that the Gretchen Road name will be Gretchen Road and it will never change,
yes.
and that they'll have 3 years?
If we, presuming, it's approved by town meeting and we complete the purchase, then yes. We have an agreement that Gretchen Road will stay Gretchen Road in perpetuity. And it would in fact have to be deeded that way. And it would be in the deed that the town ultimately signs in the purchase. The only other two things that you mentioned, the one other you didn't mention was it was an agreement in the purchase and sales that will refrain from cutting down any of the white birches unless absolutely necessary. That seemed like an easy thing to agree to. And the issue with the campers staying, correct me, Ellen, if I'm wrong on this, I was quite concerned about the verbiage when we did it, where any campers who are allowed to stay, we will not go up on their rent for 3 years. It was not that we have to be in the campground business for 3 years or anything else. It's any campers who are allowed to stay. I asked for that under the very real belief, even back then, and I said this to the owners, that the townspeople may decide they want the beach, but don't want to be in the campground business, and it was important that we give them that option. So those are the only stipulations that were attached to the purchase and sales.
Long term, what does, and Harry, you could probably answer this as well, talking about do the math and whatever, I've watched a few of the videos that have concerned that. What happens at next reval? Because even though you are technically putting a liability on the balance sheet, it is an asset. What happens to taxes when the town does get reevaluated with a town beach?
I don't know that it changed, I don't know that just having a beach changes anything.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, we are taking, and part of the math that people need to understand is we are taking, if we do purchase this, we're taking a piece of property off the tax rolls. Because the vast majority of it is wetland, and a great deal of it was already in current use. What it was generating in tax revenue was about $26,000 a year. You need to factor that into the decision-making on what it's gonna cost. But as far as the overall evaluation, what is happening and has happened, every time somebody builds something, every time somebody adds on, the town's value goes up. I think that for many reasons, this isn't, I've said over and over, this isn't just about a place to go put your feet in the water. It is, to a certain extent, about, I believe, the identity of the town. And whether or not I mean, this isn't Lake Freedom, this isn't Lake Effingham, this is Lake Ossipee. And right now, there is not a place, unless you were invited, for a person from the town of Ossipee to go down and stick their feet in that water.
I understand.
I think that part should,
I wasn't questioning that.
no, I just think that's what has been driving this whole thing.
Yeah. I just want to know the math.
Yep.
Because I've been invited here to come here and ask how it works, and I, in business, whenever I make a move,
Yep.
I want to know 4, 5, 6, 7 steps ahead
Sure.
of what we're about to do.
Yep.
So I'm just educating myself
Yep.
on what we're
Yep.
talking about.
Well-
So with that being said, if we were to purchase that beach for $1.2 million, you're having an information night to show people some conceptual ideas of what you're planning, what
Correct.
this board is planning. Do we have any idea what that budget is to bring that beach up to what you're proposing?
Yes, we do, and we'll have those. The actual operating costs, a couple of things. One of the factors that went into our decision to get rid of the campground in its entirety is because there is a full functioning bathhouse, changing room, etc., which is in the campground portion of the property currently. So that alone negates the need to do porta potties or anything else. We'll have a full functioning restroom facility and changing room there. Past that, you have literally somebody going down there and picking up trash. We have somebody on the payroll that does that at Duncan Lake Beach, and they will extend it down to there. So on its face, as far as to simply operate the beach, there is no additional cost. Anything that's decided to be done down on that property, i.e., I mean, there have been people who have said there ought to be a pavilion, there ought to be a playground, there ought to be a volleyball. Those are all things to be decided later on, and whether or not the townspeople want to do them and whether or not they want to support them. But the actual cost to operate it as a beach, open it to the public, is virtually minuscule. The issue of purchasing is a case of simply doing the math. We have a pretty solid estimate from the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank, say that 3 times fast, of exactly what the rates will be and what the cost will be. And then it's simply a case of math of dividing it into the town's valuation, and you come up with that tax impact. We're right now in the middle of budget season, but I have every reason to expect that we will continue to lower the tax rate year in, year out. Will this keep us from lowering it as much as we might have otherwise? Absolutely. Absolutely. But I still go back to looking at what we've been able to accomplish over the last 4 years and continuously reducing the taxes. I believe we can continue it, and I believe we can continue it with the beach.
Sure. So, again, if we propose to add playgrounds and yada yada, I mean, of course, that would be nice, it'd be great for the townspeople. Have we looked into neighboring communities and what the town beaches have actually done for impact, whether it is financial and taxes to, police detail, to what those things have? And again, did it increase at reval? Did it increase anybody's taxes then? Did it, what impact does it have financially there?
I can tell you in advance, I haven't, and I don't know that. I'm a little lost at what you mean about the difference at reval, but.
Well, maybe I'm not saying it right, but even though we're taking on a liability, a debt, a bond.
Correct.
We're adding a tremendous asset.
Correct.
A $1.2 million X
Correct.
that we're gonna fix up
Yep.
is then gonna be worth more than $1.2 million.
Okay, and I think I got you now. And as, obviously, as years pass, and that becomes an asset which grows in value along with everything else, which you're right.
Yeah.
We do track our capital assets. It's something that we've just, quite frankly, started. And it's one of the things that, I mean, it comes back down to, At the end of the day, I think this is going to be a very simple I hope it's going to be a very simple question for people, which is, do you want public access or don't you? I started this process a couple of years ago with the Budget Committee, and I primed them by saying, we look at Selectmen from 100 years ago and say, those idiots could have had a beach for $100,000, and they all laughed. And I said, well, I'm glad you think it's funny, because 50 years from now, they're going to be looking at us saying, those idiots could have had a beach for $1 million. It's all relative. It always has been expensive, it always will be expensive. I thought Denny Legenda at a Selectmen's meeting a couple of weeks ago made a very, very valid point, which is, how can the town possibly lose? Because if you buy this property at $1.2 million, you could sell it in 3 years for 1.5 easily. Maybe able to sell it in a day for 1.5. It is an investment. No ifs, ands, or buts. The question, I guess, is are people willing to put their money where their mouth is? If they want a beach, we have to buy one. And if I look at it, we had that assessed at $1.262 million, is what our assessor had valued it at. Their independent appraisal come back at an even 1.2, which is exactly what, it was pretty hard for us to go in and say it wasn't worth it when we were assessing it for 1.26. So I believe that we can prove that the property is worth what it is we're proposing to pay for it. And now the townspeople simply need to decide, if they want a beach, we're gonna buy one. And if anybody has any ideas of anything else that's even remotely the caliber of this beach, I'd love to hear from them, because I don't know of anything else that's available or likely to be available.
Again, I don't know if it necessarily answered my question.
Okay.
If it appreciates in value, what impact does that have on taxes?
None.
None.
Because the town's property is exempted from, there are two categories when we track our assets. And the important number is, it's the valuation on which the tax base, on which the tax rate is calculated. The evaluation on which the town's tax rate is calculated is what sets your tax rate. The town's property, what we own, is not a part of that. So the simple answer is, us having an additional asset will not in any way affect your tax rate, with the exception of what I started off saying, which is we are removing $26,000 of taxable property from our current inventory, our current rate. That's where Harry's numbers come into play. If all things were considered equal, we increase zero revenues, the spending stays exactly the same, what it would cost a $100,000 home is that $13 cents a thousand. So, does that answer it?
It does.
Okay,
Thank
so I'm sorry if I was confused about what you were asking, but. Anybody else have anything? Public? Yes.
I want to say we had a good Earth Day, free dump day. We had 455 cars come in.
Excellent.
So it's a real good day.
Good. That's actually, it's not an Earth Day. Earth Day's in the spring, but it is our second free refuge day. I'm glad. You notice any reduction from last year, or is it still?
No, rate's still right up there.
Yeah. I guess what we had hoped over time by having the second one is it might reduce the spring one, but, okay, well, so be it. I'm glad for those that took advantage of it.
Yeah, you're talking about, I think before it goes to a vote, I think the question being, because I'm confused, okay? Is this property adjacent to the property that was offered for free?
I'm gonna explain it again as best I can. What we have agreed to purchase is a total of 8 lots, which total 52.3 something acres. Don't hold me to that exact number. The most important, and the part of the property, the biggest part of the property we're interested in, is there are 2 lots which abut Ossipee Lake. There is a 100-foot lot and a 90-foot lot. This land comes back, that's 200 feet wide, all the way back to Hodgson Shore Road. And I'm only guessing here that it's about 450 feet of land between Hodgson Shore Road and the lake. We also would own the 2 major lots and all of Gretchen Road back to Route 16B. That all goes with what we've agreed to purchase. When we begin to look for a beach, it's not just about finding 50 feet of sand. It's about having parking, and having access.
yeah, I know.
Because otherwise, what's the point? So we negotiated the purchase of the whole parcel to get Gretchen Road and both lots and the large area that goes down. Let me finish. We made that agreement. Subsequent to that, quite frankly, some members who, people who are seasonal campers, tried to get the owners to change their mind, and as part of that, they were gonna give us this 90-foot section, and the campers were gonna buy everything else. This 90-foot section is about 3/4 of an acre in its entirety. There is 90 feet of sand, and then there is a swamp, wetland, very wet. And then a very small area of high ground which abuts Hodgson Shore Road. From the get-go, as generous as it was, those were my words that I used to her, that it was a generous offer. It was in no way ever going to meet the beach needs for the town of Ossipee. If you cleared all of the trees, you might have been able to park 6 or 8 cars. And from the parking area, you couldn't get to the beach without going through the swamp. It was never adequate, never adequate. I told the Superior Court judge on Friday, and I mean this, had that piece of property, that 90-foot piece of property, been independently available, it is not a piece of property that we would have ever seriously considered purchasing for a town beach, because it simply isn't adequate. The other thing that it would have done by necessity, because we would not have owned Gretchen Road, which is a private road, is it would have steered any and all use of it down Hodgson Shore Road, which is a very narrow, very windy road, and has never been our desire to do, to impact with a bunch of traffic. It's not built for it. So for all of those reasons, we didn't decline the offer of a free beach, which the opponents keep talking about. We didn't decline it. What I asked, and what the owners ultimately did, is to honor the agreement that they had already made with us to sell us the whole thing. We never refused that, albeit it would not have met our needs. That's why we asked that they proceed with our initial
So you
agreement.
so you're purchasing both, basically?
Correct, we're
Okay.
purchasing the whole thing, is what is proposed.
Yeah.
Yes. Does that answer that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Ed?
I just wanted to announce that GovernmentOversite.com has started videotaping the New Hampshire Fish and Game Commission.
Yeah.
It's never had any type of video camera in the room. The first meeting is online. It's just important you watch it. The governor actually appoints those commissioners, and now even the governor can watch to see what the commission does. The commission needs your support. Even if it's just knowing that you're watching is a good idea. Number 2, at 7 o'clock tonight at the Effingham Public School, elementary school, is your school board meeting. Again, the school board is always complaining that no one ever comes to the meeting. Again, if you can't go, I mean, it's 7 o'clock at night, it usually runs until about 8:30. Even if they are under the understanding that you're watching, it's important to. It's a large tax on your properties and such. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have anything else? If not, I make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
So,
Marie,
we ready now?
she's shrinking.